Good morning. How are you, Judge? Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm doing well, thank you.
Want to welcome everybody to another weekly episode of Nomberg Law Live. I have the privilege today to be with my friend Judge Robert Vance Jr. Judge Vance is running for Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, and I'm so very pleased that he has time to share with us. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
Do you realize what city that you're in today? As long as as many days as you're out on the campaign trail, I see you all over our state. I hope you have got a good night's sleep and can spend some good quality minutes with us.
I did, and I'm actually speaking to you from our campaign headquarters here in Birmingham. So this is a good opportunity to come back and get a little work done here.
Well, very good, very good. For those of you just joining us, or for those of you who are going to watch this later on, and we certainly hope many of you do, in the comment section, we will put the campaign contact information for the judge. We'll do that either during the show or we'll do that later on, because there's certainly, I believe yard signs are now available. Certainly there's other people you can contact within the party to help with Judge's campaign and those types of things. Judge, I know you have given this type of interview many times over the last several years. But for those folks who don't know you, for those folks who may be hearing or seeing you for the first time, give us just a little bit of background about who you are and what you're about.
Sure, absolutely. I have had the privilege of being a circuit judge, that is a trial level judge, here in Birmingham, Jefferson County, for the past 16 years. I have loved every minute of it. I was born and raised here in Birmingham. My father was a federal judge for several years, so I had the benefit, the privilege of learning from him. He was a great role model, and I really learned about what it takes to be a good judge. And I always wanted to follow in his footsteps, so I went to law school, attended University of Virginia Law School, graduated there in 1985. That's where I met my lovely wife, Joyce. And I coaxed her into moving down to Birmingham. She's a Los Angeles girl, but she was quite taken with the pork barbecue we have here, so it was an easy persuasion to get her to move down here. She moved down and we got married shortly thereafter. I practiced law, private practice with the Johnston Barton firm here in Birmingham for about 15, 16 years. And then Governor Siegelman appointed me to be a circuit judge back in 2002, and that is the position I've held ever since.
Judge, as you know, I've had the privilege of appearing before Your Honor many times in court cases, and I've always been impressed about how you conduct your courtroom, the not only just the way that the personnel who work for you in the courtroom also act, but it's so civilized. It's too easy these days for people who appear in court, whether they're lawyers or pro se or whoever they may be. They're just, I guess, with the evolution of society, a lot of the traditional rules and regulations just seem to get away. But I've never noticed that in your court, so I certainly applaud that. So I just wanted to state that for as a matter of candor to the audience who are watching. I certainly have known Judge Vance for many, many years, and I appreciate him sharing some time with us today. Judge, we know that you're running for Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, of which is a quite visible job. It's a quite visible position in our state. Some say it's the most important position other than maybe the governor's position in our state and maybe head coach at one of the university's football teams, of which we don't have to get too deep into today. If you would share with us a little bit about the principles upon which you're running. Why do folks want to care about Judge Bob Vance?
Right. And I always start off when I speak to groups with the threshold question, why should you care about this race? And that involves explaining what the position of the Chief Justice is all about. Many people know that the Chief Justice is one of 9 members of the Alabama Supreme Court. That is the highest court in our state judicial system, and it hears appeals from all courts throughout Alabama. And that's certainly true, but to me, the more important function of the Chief Justice is to serve as the chief administrative official for all of Alabama's courts. We've got 67 counties here in Alabama, and there are a number of courts in every single county. We've got probate courts, we've got municipal courts, district courts, circuit courts, we've got intermediate appellate courts. The Chief Justice is responsible for making sure that all those courts are functioning properly in serving the people of Alabama. So if there's a problem, if there's an issue anywhere in any court in this state, the buck lands ultimately on the desk of the Chief Justice. So I really do see the position as being an advocate, not only for the Supreme Court, but for all the courts and all the people working in our court system and everyone who has to go to court, who are involved in any kind of legal proceeding. The Chief Justice must be a representative for everyone in dealings with the legislature and the governor and other groups who are involved in the process of making sure that our courts have all the resources, the funding needed to adequately do the job. So as Chief Justice, that would be my primary focus, to make sure that all the courts in Alabama are serving the people like they should.
Judge Vance, one of the things you just touched upon that is so very important is an issue of court funding or lack of funding, and it's been in the news so many times over the years. What problems are created when there is a lack of funding? And then as a follow-up, how would you deal with that issue if you become the Chief Justice?
You know, I've been a judge now for about 16 years, and it seems like ever since I've been a judge, court funding has been a constant struggle. We've had years where we've really encountered difficulties in getting the funding that we need to make sure the courts are up and running like they should be. So it's been just an oppressive burden that weighs the court system down perpetually. Just about a month ago, for example, the presiding judge in Mobile County, Judge Lockett, announced that they had to cut back the number of jury weeks in Mobile County and also lay off some personnel, which is almost unheard of in the court system because of a funding shortfall. And sadly, that's not a unique situation. We went through a very similar situation here in Jefferson County a few years back, where we had to scale back the number of jury weeks and reduce personnel, fortunately for a temporary period. The problem all comes from the fact that the funding that our courts receive comes from the Alabama General Fund. I won't get too deep in the weeds on this, but the General Fund is one of two funds that we have here in Alabama, the other being the Education Trust Fund. And the General Fund resources, the money comes from various taxes and other funding sources that has stayed static over a period of time. We're not seeing a great increase in those revenue sources. Meanwhile, we're competing with dollars with other programs like the prison system and Medicaid, where the demands have escalated greatly over the last few years. So it's a terrible situation, not only for the court system, but from all the other agencies who are so dependent on the general fund. We're all having to fight over what limited resources are available, and it's been that way for a number of years. There's no quick and easy fix. I'm not promising that I have any kind of magic wand so that when I'm Chief Justice, I can go in and solve the problems. I think it's important, though, that we have a Chief Justice who focuses and makes that a number one priority in working with the legislature and working with everyone else involved in the process in a systematic, persistent way of negotiating and trying to work out budgets and procuring the funding needed. Oftentimes that involves just explaining to people why they should care about the courts and how the courts generate so much revenue for so many other agencies. So the courts are very important here in Alabama. And the Chief Justice, as I said before, really needs to be that advocate who explains and lets people know why they should focus on the courts and the function that the courts serve.
Judge, tell us a little bit of your envision of how, if you're elected, what are some of the more important issues that Alabamians face these days? There's so many issues out there. There's only so much time you have in a given period of time to get certain things done. But what are those most important key issues that Alabamians really need help on?
Sure. We're in a difficult spot, and I explained the funding pressures, and that's certainly true. But our courts are in a situation where they're having to make do and do more with less in terms of resources. We are encountering in our courts a lot of the problems that we hear about on television and other media every week. For example, we've heard about the epidemic of heroin and opioid addiction. We're seeing that in our court system. We've heard about the fact that there are so many people in Alabama who need treatment for mental illnesses and are not getting that treatment. Again, we're seeing many of those people going through the court system. Many of these people are getting in trouble. Either they're off their medications or they're being driven by their addiction. At any given time, for example, in the Birmingham jail, roughly half of those being processed through the jail have a substance abuse issue of some sort, and about a quarter to a third have some sort of mental illness, and many suffer from both. So that is causing real strains and real pressures on the criminal justice system and our prisons. And we've heard about prison overcrowding, where our prisons are at roughly 200% of ideal capacity. But many of those prison beds are being taken up by people who are suffering from these kind of public health problems, and they're not getting the treatment they need. And it really does become a revolving door situation where these people who need help, they don't get help. They spend time in prison. They'll be released. Most folks are released from our prisons 3 or 4 years. You go back out on the streets, problem's still not solved. And again, they'll get in trouble down the line. So that's a big question. How do we help these people who need help and try to get them to become productive, tax-paying citizens rather than folks that get in trouble and go through that revolving door of our criminal justice system? Like I said, it's an enormous problem. There's no quick fix. But again, step one has to be developing a priority where you're focusing on that as a big issue that we must grapple with. And I think more and more people in Montgomery and in Alabama are recognizing, hey, we got to get a handle on these kind of problems, or we're going to be in real serious trouble down the road.
Well, Judge, I appreciate you bringing that as topic to the forefront, because I know it's been a very heavy issue for many, many years, if not decades, not just in Alabama, but throughout the country. And just that you're addressing it at this point in time is a very good sign. It's a very good indication that it hopefully will be addressed very soon. For those of you just joining us, for those of you who are going to be watching us later on, this is Nomberg Law Live. We come to you every Tuesday morning. I have the privilege of speaking with Chief Justice candidate Judge Bob Vance, judges in Birmingham, and graciously has given us a few minutes of his time today. Judge, I want to kind of shift a little bit to talk about millennials. And I know how they have become so very important. We saw in the elections of 2016, we hear more and more about how they're not just kids anymore. They don't just all play online games and don't care about things. They certainly care, and they certainly are very important to elections. How have you reached out to them? How have you made an impression?
Oh, you're absolutely right, Bernard. Millennials are so important, and they are becoming more and more engaged in the process. Conventional wisdom 10, 15 years ago were that younger voters didn't really matter because they didn't make the effort to learn about the issues and to actually vote. I think that's changed, as we saw from last December's election, where Doug Jones was elected senator from Alabama. In large part, Doug enjoyed support from the younger voters, and that made a difference. And they are so much more attuned to the issues that we're dealing with. The high school students in the Parkland, Florida shooting case, the aftermath of that horrible tragedy. I mean, it's the kids, the younger people, who really are driving that effort to make the country sit up and pay attention to some of these big social issues. So what's important is to make sure that millennials stay engaged, because so often people get frustrated. The pace of change in our society sometimes takes a long time. And Bernard, you and I are old enough to remember back to the days of the civil rights movement, back in the 60s and thereafter. Change came, but at a agonizingly slow pace at times. And the key is to keep people from getting discouraged and just giving up. Persistence and staying with it, and realizing that change comes through effort over time. That's the important message that I would always convey to younger people like my kids, to say, okay, you've got strong feelings and you've got strong beliefs and you want to do things, but it's going to take a lot of time, and you're going to have to keep at it to get that change that you want. So that's, I think, what millennial voters, younger voters, should remember, that while we all applaud their energy and their enthusiasm and their effort, persistence and dedication and stick-to-itness matter just as much.
As society has modernized with more and more technology, it really is giving them, when I say them, the younger voters, the millennials, a platform that they've never had in the decades prior. We certainly never had platforms to be able to get in front of the masses as you can just going live on any of the social media platforms and getting the attention and getting your message out.
This program is a great example. I'm coming to you, I'm looking at a iPhone, and it's set up in front of me. And I never even envisioned such possibilities 10, 15 years ago. And there's so many social media available now to communicate with one another, to get a message out, get folks engaged. I must admit, I don't understand all of them yet. I have to have my daughter explain some of these things to me. But I am always fascinated by how much the world has changed from technology in the last few years. I can remember when that first iPod came out back in 2002 or so, and ever since then it seems like we've been in a brave new world where technology drives so much.
It is. It's not every year. It's not every 6 months or 6 weeks. It's about every week something new is coming out, and it's not for our generation to necessarily try to keep up, but maybe get the younger generations to keep us keeping up. But Judge, I know that you're on the campaign trail. You're all over the state. Where can folks go? What website? Who can they call? And we'll put this in the comment section in a few minutes. But what's your website, and what's the best way to get in touch with your campaign?
Yep, the easiest way is to go to our website, and it's easy to remember, judgebobvance.com. There are several pages on the website. There are many pages that give more information about what our campaign is about and what we hope to accomplish. There's also a page that you can put in your info to stay in contact with the campaign, and there's a donate page. So again, speaking of technology, that's so great, because I ran for Chief Justice 6 years ago, and we did not have anything like that even 6 years ago. So everyone wants to see and expects to see a website, and ours has been very helpful to us, and I think helpful for people who want to learn more about us. So we have the website. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a Twitter feed. We've got an Instagram account. So we're all over the place these days.
And again, we'll put all of those links to each of those social media platforms in our comment section. Judge, what about yard signs? Do you still have some available, and how do we get them?
We do have yard signs. We just got them in a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact. And they are at our campaign headquarters, which is located at 1516 20th Street South. That's on 20th Street as you head from 5 Points South in Birmingham going up to Vulcan. We'll be on the right-hand side. Just turn right on 16th Avenue there, and we're in a white building right on the corner. But we've got a stock of yard signs available now for anyone who wants to come by and pick one up.
Judge, I know we've got some important dates coming up, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Do you know where you're going to be in the upcoming days? Where can folks go to shake your hand and listen to you talk a little bit?
I barely know what I'm doing today. I know I'm going down to I'm going down to Montgomery on Thursday for meetings with some of the labor unions who've been very helpful to me, not only in this cycle, but in past cycles. So my friends of labor, I value very much. I'm visiting with them Thursday. Next Monday, I believe, I've got an event with the Blue River Democrats in Tuscaloosa. But you're right, Bernard. One thing about campaigning that I discovered, the candidate rarely knows what's coming up even 24 hours away. The calendar is getting filled up pretty quickly, and my campaign staff has to tell me, okay, Judge, today you remember you're supposed to be here or there, and without them, I'd be struggling.
Well, Judge, that's a sign of a great leader. You've got a bunch of very, very competent folks around you, keeping you on the straight and narrow.
I am so blessed to have a good team.
Judge Vance, we just had a question come in for you. This is from Pat Cicerini. Thank you, Pat, for this. Since this is a political race, Judge, will Judge Vance say what distinguishes him from his opponent?
Yes, I will. This race does provide quite a contrast, I think, and I think we do need to bring out that contrast so people can make an informed decision. And it has to do with competing visions of what I see the role of Chief Justice being and what my opponent sees that role as. I've explained a little bit about my vision as Chief Justice, just making sure that our courts remain open, serving the people of Alabama, providing fairness for everyone who comes into a courtroom, regardless of who they are. I've always been driven from my years as a circuit judge working with other judges, Democrat and Republican. We recognize that partisan politics really should have no role in any courthouse. And we've done a great job here in Jefferson County. The judges here have gotten along working together as a team, and great. We work together fabulously and without regard to partisan politics. And that's really made an impression on me that the Chief Justice really has to be a figure that stands above personal agendas and partisan politics, because the Chief Justice represents the entire court system. So it should embody that spirit of being for all Alabamians. So that's very important to me. Now, my opponent, Justice Parker, has a different view. He has been an ally of Roy Moore's for the past 15 years. And like Roy Moore, Justice Parker really has focused on some of these wedge social issues that I don't think really are pressing problems that our courts are facing. So I have concerns when any politician throw out these kind of hot wedge issues, social issues for political gain. That's not what we should be about. I don't think that's what the people want anymore. Certainly Doug Jones' win in December suggests that maybe we've turned a corner, and maybe the people of Alabama are getting tired of the politics of divisiveness and of intolerance. Maybe we just want people in office who will go about quietly and methodically dealing with the real problems we have. So I have concerns about my opponent, and he's not been shy about talking about what his priorities are, and they're not my priority. So it does make a very pointed contrast in this election.
Well, Judge, it certainly does, and I know that the informed voters in Alabama, they certainly can see there is such a contrast. There has, as you pointed out, with the election of Doug Jones this past election cycle, that hopefully shows a trend that we're heading upon, because the past certainly has not been very favorable, in my opinion, for many Alabamians over the years. Judge, as we get close to wrapping up our interview here, and again, I certainly appreciate your time and spending it with us and sharing your views and your thoughts of how you see the Chief Justice position being and your vision for Alabama through the court system. I want to give you just another minute or two, if you'd like, to share anything else you want the Alabamian voters should be aware of, things that are coming up. Hopefully that's not indicative of anything to come.
Well, thank you, Bernard. This race is important, and there are a number of races coming up on November 6th. That's the general election date. Of course, we have the governor's race and lieutenant governor and all the other races. So there'll be a lot of choices for people to make. The race for Chief Justice, we're down the ballot a ways. So I would ask people that they scroll down the ballot to Chief Justice race and focus on our race along with the others. But I would just encourage people to get engaged and stay informed about all the choices they'll have to make on November 6th. We do best as a society when the people of our communities are engaged in the political process. I think that's so important. And certainly participating in elections, learning about the candidates, and actually showing up to vote on election day is so important. And it is my hope that people stay engaged. I'm sensing a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy when I go to political events. So it's my hope that we can keep up that energy. But for so many years, I think people have been turned off by politics with good reason. When we hear about the corruption and scandal in Montgomery and other places, it's easy to get turned off. But people, the voters, I think, are beginning to recognize that change comes only if they do stay engaged and only if they do exercise their constitutional right to vote. So I would just encourage folks to do that come November 6th.
Thank you, Judge Vance. You heard it from the man. Get out, make sure you vote on November 6th. Chief Justice position is Judge Bob Vance is one of the candidates. Judge, thank you for your time this morning. We certainly appreciate you sharing your views with us, and we certainly wish you the best along the way, the campaign trail. And hopefully you know where you're going on the next couple of days and get some good, much needed rest.
I appreciate being on.
Certainly. This will conclude today's episode of Nomberg Law Live. Thank you guys for watching us live. Thank you for those who will watch it later on, and the rebroadcast of it. We'll have it up on the Facebook page and other social media platforms, as well as the judge's different platforms that he has for his campaign. If you would, just after we're finished, if you still have comments, we'll make sure those get routed to the judge, and we'll put all of his communication information in the comment section. Thank you, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you again next Tuesday on Nomberg Law Live. Take care.